You're dying right now, second by second, no joke. You're unconscious, motionless, and completely helpless. That's what sleep is. Biologically speaking, sleep is the single most dangerous thing a human being does on a regular basis. For a third of your life, your muscles go limp, your awareness of the outside world drops to almost nothing, and you become a giant, motionless pile of calories lying on the ground with absolutely no protection. If you were a predator looking for an easy meal. A sleeping human is about as close to a free lunch as nature gets. So the real question isn't why ancient humans avoided sleeping alone. It's why anyone today thinks sleeping alone in a private room, behind a closed door, with no one else nearby, is normal. Let's start with the biggest, most obvious reason across all of human history. Predators don't take breaks just because it's night. In fact, many of the most dangerous animals to humans hunt more effectively in low-light conditions: leopards, lions, hyenas, pack hunters. They hunt at night, when your vision is at its worst, when your reaction time is at its slowest. A person sleeping alone is the worst combination you could imagine. Completely unaware, completely immobile, completely alone. No one nearby to raise an alarm or step in. More bodies mean more senses, even if they're only partially working, dramatically increasing the chance of detecting something approaching before it gets close enough to strike. This connects to what sleep researchers have discovered about sleep architecture. Human sleep isn't one single, uniform state of unconsciousness. It cycles through different stages, some lighter and easier to interrupt than others. In any group of sleeping people, each person is at a different point in their sleep cycle, due to natural differences in when they fell asleep and how their sleep stages progress. This means a group sleeping together maintains overlapping alertness throughout the night. Even without anyone intentionally standing guard, someone in the group is more likely to be in a lighter sleep stage at any given time. Easier to wake up by an unusual sound or movement, compared to a solo sleeper who has no backup at all. Researchers studying hunter-gatherer populations have found something even more interesting: intentional watch behavior built right into group sleeping arrangements. Studies of the Hadza and various San communities show something remarkable. Even in communal sleeping spaces, certain people wake up periodically during the night, sometimes tending to the fire, sometimes just staying alert for a moment before going back to sleep, creating an informal, rotating alertness within the group, without anyone having to sacrifice their entire night's rest. This isn't some rigid, scheduled guard duty system. It emerges naturally from the rhythms of multiple people sleeping close together. But the effect is remarkably similar to an organized watch rotation, achieved through biological coincidence and proximity rather than planning. Let's talk about fire, because it adds another important layer to this story. Group sleeping arrangements were often organized around a central fire. Keeping that fire going all night required occasional attention, adding wood, adjusting the position, making sure it didn't die out during the coldest, most dangerous hours. This setup naturally created opportunities for the periodic wakefulness we just discussed. Someone had to tend the fire occasionally, and that brief waking moment also became a chance to scan the darkness, looking for anything approaching the group. The fire and the sleeping group formed one integrated survival system, light and warmth radiating outward, bodies huddled together providing warmth and overlapping vigilance. Body temperature is also worth mentioning here. We've discussed shelter before, but it deserves attention here too. Body temperature drops slightly during sleep, part of normal regulation, but this drop becomes more dangerous in cold environments without external heat. Sleeping close to others provides passive thermal benefit all night long, without requiring effort or fuel like maintaining a fire does for ancient people in cold nighttime environments. Sleeping alone wasn't just a security risk. It was a measurable thermoregulation risk too. Group sleep solved this directly and efficiently. There's something fascinating about historical sleep patterns more broadly. Ancient and pre-industrial sleep structures were different. Not the continuous 8-hour block modern people think is normal. Historical records from pre-industrial societies describe segmented sleep, a pattern with a first sleep period, a waking period in the middle of the night, sometimes lasting an hour or more, then a second sleep period before morning. During that waking period, people talked and interacted socially. Within the shared sleeping space, this pattern makes more sense in a group. That middle of the night waking period becomes a chance for social bonding, quiet conversation, checking on group safety, rather than just an isolated interruption in a solitary night. So is there evidence connecting ancient group sleep to better sleep quality? Scientist Jerome Siegel conducted a meaningful comparative study, examining sleep patterns in hunter-gatherer and pre-industrial societies in Africa and South America with minimal exposure to artificial light. Interestingly, these populations didn't sleep significantly longer, contradicting the earlier assumption that they slept more. The study found consistent sleep-wake cycles tied to natural light and temperature, along with low rates of insomnia in these communities, despite having no modern sleep aids. This suggests quality and consistency of sleep matter more than duration. Group sleep supports that consistency and quality. Beyond the security benefits we already discussed, let's talk about children. Co-sleeping with infants and young children is one of the most universal practices in history. Across traditional and ancient societies, connecting to developmental and practical considerations beyond safety. Infants have less developed thermoregulation. They're more vulnerable to nighttime threats. They need more frequent feeding and monitoring. Close proximity during sleep allows quick response to a child's needs, without fully waking up to check on a child in another room. Some infant sleep physiology research points to benefits too, related to nighttime breathing regulation when sleeping near a caregiver, requiring careful safety considerations, but there's underlying physiological logic connecting closeness to healthy development. Beyond convenience or tradition, does sleeping near others have downsides? Noise, disturbance, less personal space. It could work against sleep quality. That's a fair question. The honest answer is group sleep involved trade-offs, not perfect or cost-free. Snoring, movement, disturbance were real annoyances throughout history, and different people tolerated them differently. But evolution doesn't optimize for comfort, it optimizes for survival advantage. Security, warmth, and overlapping vigilance from group sleep consistently outweighed the costs of less personal space and more nighttime disturbance. Otherwise, this pattern wouldn't have remained so consistent. Across independently developing human societies, let's bring psychology into this. There's an important dimension beyond physical safety: the psychological comfort of not being alone in a vulnerable state. Modern sleep psychology research shows perceived safety affects sleep quality, anxiety, and hypervigilance. The feeling that you need to stay alert to threats interferes with deep sleep. Ancient people sleeping alone would have experienced this sleep-disrupting vigilance, due to the rational assessment that being alone while unconscious is dangerous. Sleeping in a group provided not just physical protection, but also reduced psychological threat assessment, allowing deeper sleep. Because the brain could partially relax its monitoring systems, trusting the group was providing collective alertness. There's an interesting evolutionary angle too. Connecting to primate behavior more broadly, humans aren't the only species that sleeps in groups. Looking at our close relatives helps understand this pattern. Many monkey and ape species prefer group sleeping, choosing elevated, defensible positions, huddling together rather than spreading out. This widespread pattern across primates with similar predator pressure suggests group sleeping is a deeply conserved evolutionary strategy, predating humans as a distinct species, not a uniquely human cultural innovation. Group sleep also strengthens social bonds. Shared sleeping space meant massive physical proximity accumulated over thousands of nights. Sustained closeness reinforced relationships, trust, and cohesion in ways occasional daytime interaction couldn't replicate. Sleeping near someone requires trust. You voluntarily enter your most vulnerable state next to another person. Doing it night after night is a signal of trust and belonging, playing a role in maintaining strong bonds in ancient groups. Compare this to the modern world. Sleeping alone, which industrialized people consider normal, is a recent development. Private bedrooms, solo sleeping as default, children sleeping in separate rooms from a young age. These are modern arrangements, made possible by factors that didn't exist for most of history. Larger, more divided housing, drastically reduced predator risk, lighting and security systems, and cultural shifts prioritizing privacy. Earlier communal societies didn't emphasize this as strongly. Could modern insomnia be linked to this change? Removing humans from the socially supported sleeping environment, our species adapted to over most of evolutionary history. This is debated, not a settled conclusion. Modern sleep issues involve many factors: artificial light, irregular schedules, stress, screens. Not directly related to sleeping arrangements, but worth considering, because communal sleep is deeply embedded in evolution. What about sleep paralysis and dreaming? They connect directly to vulnerability. During REM, associated with vivid dreams, the body temporarily loses muscle control, a state called atonia, preventing sleepers from acting out their dreams. This is the most vulnerable point in the sleep cycle. Someone in atonia can barely defend themselves, no matter what approaches. Some researchers speculate sleep paralysis connects to ancient anxiety, waking up while atonia is still active, conscious, but unable to move. REM atonia is the most dangerous few minutes, so having alert people nearby had real survival value. Sleeping arrangements varied by environmental risk, not applied rigidly to all populations. Groups in areas with fewer predators or in deep caves with narrow, defensible entrances had less pressure to maximize group sleeping density compared to groups in open, predator-dense environments. The underlying logic was a flexible, risk-responsive strategy, intensifying or relaxing based on the specific threat environment. That's the adaptive flexibility you'd expect from a survival behavior, not a rigid instinct applied uniformly. Hearing during sleep is also worth noting. Humans don't shut off completely when unconscious. Research on auditory processing during sleep shows the brain responds differently to meaningful sounds compared to background noise. Sleeping parents wake faster to their own child's cry than to similar loud sounds. The sleeping brain has sophisticated selective filtering. Even during deep sleep, in groups, this filtering extended beyond parent-child relationships. Group members developed sensitivity to danger sounds, unusual rustling, specific vocalizations, compared to the expected background noise of others breathing or shifting, adding another layer of passive, automatic protection. This pattern connects to burial practices in archaeology, providing indirect evidence of communal closeness, even in death. Many ancient burial sites show individuals buried close together, in positions and arrangements resembling group sleep. Though burial practices have their own symbolic meanings, the consistent clustered positioning across sleep and burial contexts suggests a deep cultural and psychological association between safety, belonging, and physical closeness, influencing how the dead were laid to rest. Finally, modern military and survival training, independent of historical knowledge from ancient practices through practical necessity. Training recommends group sleeping with rotating watches in hostile environments, reinventing through modern need the same basic strategy ancient people arrived at naturally. This convergence is telling. Modern people with full threat assessment knowledge, no cultural memory of ancient group sleep, independently reaching the same solution when facing nighttime risk, showing this is a practically optimal response, not an arbitrary cultural tradition. So why didn't ancient people sleep alone? The answer is a multi-layered set of benefits, making group sleep the obvious, sensible default in the actual conditions they lived in. Sleep was serious vulnerability, reduced awareness, reduced mobility, reduced response. Grouping together addressed that vulnerability through overlapping alertness, warmth, and shared fire, plus psychological security, child development, and social bonding. Sleeping alone wasn't a primitive limitation to endure. It was an option almost no one had any reason to choose. Think about that next time, when you're lying alone in a dark bedroom, safe behind a locked door in a warm, predator-free house. That feeling of total comfortable aloneness while unconscious is a strange, recent luxury in the full context of human history, made possible by modern safety systems our ancestors never had. For almost the entire story of our species, sleep was never something you did alone. It was something you survived together, one shared, overlapping, collectively watched night at a time.